Nuggets, Clippers, X factors in the series. And I guess that's kind of up for interpretation. In my mind, I was just thinking anybody outside of the team's understood big three who we'll talk about. And then we can make a series prediction and keep going with these series. So I guess I'll start off. The two names I wrote down for this series because of the narrative here, right? Russell Westbrook's revenge. So I'm looking at Russell Westbrook, and we've seen the good Russ and the bad Russ is what it is. It's just Russ being Russ, but it's the Russell Westbrook experience. But when he's at his best and he's channeling all of that energy and everything that he brings to the team, the Nuggets are at their best. And I think of that, and I kind of contrast that with Chris Dunn being in that starting lineup with the Clippers and kind of being Russell Westbrook's replacement, right? And that, I think that head-to-head is probably going to be where the series swings, because I think this is a very close series. I'm leaning Clippers. I don't know where you stand on this one, but I've been super impressed by LA, especially where they close the season.
Yeah, I completely agree. I actually, you know what? It's funny. I thought picking the Clippers was an upset, and then I happened to just right before we hopped on, I was looking at series prices just to see like who the teams are that are actually favored, and the Clippers are favored in this series. And, you know, rightfully so. I mean, the Nuggets fired their, you know, head coach and general manager right before the playoffs. The Clippers haven't lost a game in April. They have they have a top 5 offense, top 5 defense, number 1 net rating over the last, whatever it's been, 8 games, I think, in April. But, you know, the X factor for me, and you said outside of the big three, and I think he would actually be considered a part of the Clippers' big three at this point. But Ivica Zubac, man, I mean, he's a player who you're starting to see his name pop up on some All-NBA ballots, all defense ballots. People were, you know, kind of pushing a late campaign for him for Defense Player of the Year. So he's a player who's really come on strong this year. He's had an impressive season. And I was looking at the matchup numbers against Jokic. He's the second most, or the player that he has matched up with the second most this season is Nikola Jokic outside of Domantas Sabonis. He held him to like 44% shooting. You know, he had 10 assists and 9 turnovers in the 130 something possessions that they matched up against each other. You know, those are two big bodies. That's a tough assignment, but you know, Zoo is somebody who at one point in his career was getting played off the floor in the playoffs. And now it feels like he's a player who is going to be able to swing this series with the way that he could defend Jokic. So, you know, I'm really keying in on him on the Clippers side. And then on the Nuggets side, I didn't write down one specific name because it's got to be the combination of Christian Brown, who is an MIP candidate, Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon. Like they're going to have to get offense from somebody other than Jamal Murray, who steps up in the playoffs, and what they already know they're going to get from Jokic, because, you know, the Clippers have Kawhi, who's looking extremely healthy. James Harden has been lethal. Norm Powell, we know what he can give. So the Clippers are going to have guys, and then Zoo's averaging a double-double. So you know what you're going to get from the Clippers guys. What are you going to get from the Nuggets other guys that can help them win this series? And because of that, that's why I have the Clippers winning the series. I don't know if you have the Clippers and Nuggets, but I feel like the Clippers, you know, just through and through, they're playing better basketball right now. I'm more confident in the foundation that they have and the floor of their star players.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm Clippers in 6 in this series right now. I think it's going to be a really good series. It's going to be a hard-fought 6-game series, but I like LA for all the reasons that you said, the way they close the season. But the biggest thing outside the X factors is Kawhi Leonard. You know, I think we all, and we've mentioned it, it feels like every week when we talk about the Clippers, we're around the corner and we're just holding our breath and just really crossing our fingers, knocking on wood, everything that Kawhi just stays healthy. And he's gotten this far. And I know we've had this conversation before, the way he looked in that Suns series a couple years ago, and then disaster struck. So we're just hoping, you know, game after game that we could see playoff Kawhi Leonard, because even at this stage in his career, he is maybe the biggest playoff riser that we've seen in this generation of players. I know Jimmy Butler is out there and we're going to talk about him later, but thinking about what Kawhi did with the Raptors in 2019 on one knee, we'll never know what he was dealing with knee-wise, but what he channeled in that playoff run, I think he has one more left in him. And this year could be the year. I'm not just saying that the Clippers could go that far and win a championship this year, but the way the Western Conference is and the way everything is so matchup dependent, I also wouldn't be surprised if they did that. But starts that first series against the Nuggets, and I actually am really excited. Again, kind of why I was saying for Shane, that first Intuit Dome, you've been to the Intuit Dome, I haven't yet, but that first game is going to be on NBA TV. I think the Wall, that home court advantage, they do have very much a one-of-a-kind home court advantage. And if they win in 6, they would close the series out at home. So really excited to see playoff Kawhi healthy and on the floor and staying on the floor. And also the new look Clippers in that chess match between Ty Lue and I guess David Adelman, which I don't necessarily think he'll be in over his head, but we know what Ty Lue is capable of doing in the playoffs as well. So I'm really high. I'm really high on the Clippers coming into the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid too. And like, it feels dangerous every year. And every year we're always talking like, oh, if they stay healthy, but like they are healthy at the right time, knock on wood. And like, you know, like you said, Kawhi he's one of the biggest playoff risers we've seen. You mentioned Jimmy Butler. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my boy playoff Rondo, but like, you know, he's in that group of players that takes his game to a completely different level, but he hasn't played a full playoff series since 2021. And it feels like we are going to get that this season. But, you know, as we've seen with the Clippers before, as long as there's time on the clock, there's time for something to go wrong for the Clippers. And you know, you and I are talking about them so highly right now, but we'll see if they can actually stay healthy and then make a pretty deep playoff run, which I think they're capable of doing as long as Kawhi is playing at 100%.
Yeah, 100%. And one last note, we're talking about the Clippers. We got to talk about James Harden too, man. Shout out to him. I was texting one of my friends the other day. He's like the biggest James Harden fan I know. When he went off, I think it was 38 in the game where it was deciding who went to playoffs or not. They played the Warriors last game of the season. And I text him Uno in all caps because that's James Harden's little tagline. He's like, man, he doesn't get talked about enough. And I was looking at it, 9 straight 51 seasons, save for the 72 game shortened year. He won 48, and the Nets went 48 and 24 that year. So we don't talk about it enough. And I know it's regular season stuff, and there's a lot of knocks, and James Harden has his postseason warts. So I do have my eyes on that as well. You know, I'm not going to get into the big legacy talk and all of this stuff, but if he's able to really perform at the same level he was all season, because we shouted him out last week for the older guys who are still holding serve. If he's able to kind of turn that corner and continue to do what he's been doing down the stretch of the season and all year, then he will get a much deserved credit for what he's been doing. Because I think that if we get a James Harden, you know, playing at the All-NBA, All-Star level he was all throughout the season, the Clippers might make light work of Denver just because of the way James and Kawhi have been playing. It's been pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and you know, I feel like he is the player who has kind of gotten forgotten throughout this Clipper season. Again, he was an all-star. Like, he's going to get All-NBA consideration. But like, when you're talking about the Clippers, it's always like Zoo's having a breakout year. Incredible what Norman Powell did when Kawhi's out. Oh, look, Kawhi's healthy. But like, Harden's been the guy running the show the entire time. And, you know, he's as lethal of a playmaker as we've ever seen. He still has that next gear that he can get to. I mean, we've seen him do it in the playoffs every now and then, not necessarily consistently, but, you know, I'm curious to see if he can do that in the postseason this year, because that could be the difference between the Clippers potentially going all the way to like the Western Conference Finals or NBA Finals, or even being eliminated in the first round. Yeah,
100%. And I think maybe it benefits him that he's not being talked about that much, and it's like kind of flying under the radar, and maybe takes away the pressure. But unfortunately, the first shortcoming that he has is going to be all over the place. So shout out to you, James Harden. We're giving you your shout out as much deserved before things go better or go worse in the first round. Thanks for checking out NBA Soundsystem Canada on YouTube. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe below and find us wherever you get your podcasts. And on Instagram, we have weekly episodes and bonus content throughout the week.